Yes, we are live. Hello, it is 420, and it's Jeff Kravitz, 420 Live, coming at you on this beautiful Thursday. It is September 17th. We are plowing through the months, 6 months of going live with you here, coming in every day, hopefully loud and clear. Is there anybody out there? I know people are getting busy, back to life. Only 20% of America is out of work. So I guess people are starting to get back to work and back to school. Although New York City seemed to extend their little break for another week or so. It looks like people are getting back at it. We're getting back into the swing of things, back at life, off of the internet. You know, I feel it. I see it. I understand it. It's hard. It's hard to stay focused. There's so many things pulling your attention these days, especially with the impending election and coming up. I guess we're getting debates on Joe Rogan for 4 hours. I don't know what's going on. You know what, folks? Not my job. I'm just here to distract, here to take you away like Calgon. I'll take you away from all this. Our guest today, we are, if you can figure it out, we're going to have native Wayne Jobson, Grammy-winning producer. He worked on Toots Hibbert's last record, Toots and the Maytals. We lost Toots earlier this week. A tragic loss, another COVID death of an amazing entertainer, someone who's kept us entertained. He's touched so many people. This guy would just come on a festival lineup. If you saw Toots, I see you there, Wayne. If you saw Toots on a lineup, you knew you were in for a great time that night, and he was going to come lay it down and do it. Hit me one more time. He would hit him one more time. He was something else, and it's just so hard now to process how many different people we've lost, how many people we might never see on stage again by the time this is done. A lot of our entertainers are getting into those graying days. Even this guy right here, I'm getting into those graying days. I guess better to have some gray hair than no hair, but I'm really riding the line there. It's been such an interesting time for me to come out to Los Angeles. When I did, I came out when people were still using film in their cameras. If you don't know, I was a photographer. I worked with Getty Images for many years, shooting events all over town. And now that whole event business, I mean, they had the ACMs last night, Academy Country Music. They was on a stage and everybody participated and went out and wore their masks and got tested and kept social distance. And, they're trying to have some kind of level of normalcy and do these award shows. But, I can't really think of anything more pointless right now than an award show. It's probably the last thing we need in America or in our world is to be patting each other on the back for something we did until we can get out of this and get back to something, some kind of normalcy. I mean, I think with all these shows should be on hiatus. I mean, I appreciate the entertainment, the music and stuff like that, and everybody going out and performing. And I guess that's the best thing about it is all these artists being able to perform again for the first time. So congratulations, ACM, for getting it done with no cases. That's them and the VMAs, and we had a BETs. And I'm sure next is going to be, I read about the Emmys with 130 cameras going to people's houses, and that's going to be really dry. I don't know how they're going to make that interesting, but not my job. My job's to be here and distract you. Actually, it's not my job. This is my passion. I come here every day because I'm loving the conversations I'm getting in with people, and I'm loving being able to touch so many lives and say hi and catch up with so many people. And this week when I was, thinking about guests, and I read a post by Wayne, and he worked on Toots record, and Wayne Jobson and I go back many years. The Reggae Revolution on K-Rock for 7 years was like top #1 reggae station in reggae show in the world. I think it was amazing. I don't know how many others there were, but I know that I think Doug Herzog actually started the reggae channel back at his school. Well, Wayne probably knows that story too. But Wayne Jobson, Grammy-winning producer, worked with No Doubt, Gregory Isaacs, Toots and the Maytals. He's a documentary filmmaker. Ernest Ragland's documentary he did, and he's put the music together for Cool Runnings. Always involved in anything coming out of Jamaica. Yeah, he's lived in Jamaica for years. He's in Jamaica right now, and we're happy to have him on the show. My old friend, Native Wayne Jobson.
Maximum respect to the Wicked Jeff, man.
How are you?
Excellent, man. You should be here right now, man. It's like I'm right on the water. It's absolute magic, you know. This is the place to be, man. I was due back in LA, like I've been here for like 6 months. I was due back in LA like 2 months ago, and it's just too rough. And too rough. I hear the air quality is bad and all that, so I'm scared to come back. You know?
I would be too. And how's everything on the island?
I mean, incredible. I mean, our COVID thing is a lot better than most places in the world. You know, we've only had like 40 deaths in 6 months. So wow. We have 40 deaths in an hour. You know, so it's been, as far as that, it's been very, very cool.
Do people still wearing masks or no?
Good thing. The government came out in the beginning and said everybody has to wear masks, and people have been wearing them and doing the social distancing, and that's why our count has been so low. You know.
Wow.
So very safe.
Is there still music and stuff? Are they doing shows or anything like that?
Not real shows. No shows going on there because they have to keep all the distancing. So they banned all shows and everything. But of course, there's still a lot of recording going on. Everybody's recording. I was just in the studio with Sly and Robbie doing a lot of projects with them. And of course, just a few, I mean, what I'm really sad about at the moment, just about a month or two ago, I was producing Toots's new video to go with the album that we did together. And in the end, it was like a lot of complications, and we ended up doing a animation video. But I remember the last time I saw him when I was at his house, and as I was walking out, and he said to me, "Here, put this on," and he gave me this shirt. Oh. This is the only time I'm ever going to wear it. After this, is going into my museum, you know, because it was handed to me by him, and it's the last time I saw him. So it was like,
when was that?
Oh, 2 months ago.
And when was the record finished?
That was from the end of last year.
So it's been sitting in the can for a while, waiting for the release date?
A lot of work to do, because Toots had been working on the tracks over like 10 years. And he had like 50 tracks, and we went through Zach Starkey from The Who, you know, Ringo Starr's son and the drummer in The Who, when he used to be in Oasis. We went through and picked out all like the best 10 songs out of the 50 songs he had recorded, and went in, and Toots had played every instrument on it. That's the thing, is that Toots is like this genius who can play every instrument, you know. Many years ago, Prince came to see him, and when Prince told him that he plays every instrument, Toots said, "Well, I'm going to be like Prince. I'm going to learn, and I'm going to play every instrument." So on this album, he plays everything.
Wow.
We just brought in Sly Dunbar, who's the best, you know, reggae drummer in the world, and he just fixed up some of the drums. Not that they needed fixing, but just to add a little bit to it and slide it. And then Zach Starkey is an amazing guitarist as well, and he put on some guitar in it. But it's all, everything you hear in that album's called Got to Be Tough. It's out, you know, it's on Trojan BMG Records. And it's and you know, everything on it is played by Toots.
Well, I listened to the record the other day, so congratulations. It sounds incredible. So how did you help? What was your job with Toots? How do you deal with him in the studio?
Just to help them get the sound. Well, first of all, to get him in the first place, you know, he's a very private guy. It's hard, you know, because I've known him for many years. I had to go to him and say, yes, this is going to be a great thing. Introduce him to Zach and said, yeah, Zach is an amazing musician, an amazing producer. And so we came in and I just put it all together, and just going in the studio, making sure that everything sounds right, and you know, all the vocals and everything were right. So it's just a matter of coordinating the whole thing with them together, you know. But I've worked with Toots in the past, and he's just so brilliant, you know what I mean? Like on the new album, Toots actually produced it, you know. Zach just helped and I just helped and all that. But he has producer's credit because he had done all the work on it.
For 10 years.
Yeah, just building up. He hadn't released anything, and he was just collecting the songs and touring, because he tours every day. And I don't know if you know, but a few years ago, somebody threw a bottle and hit him in the head on a show. And so he had to come off the road for like 3 years. So that greatly affected him, you know. But he's so strong that, remember, he just passed at 77. So he got hit in the head with a bottle at about 72 or 73. And he was still able to survive and come out and keep touring and playing. And he's like one of these superhumans, you know. National treasure of Jamaica.
Oh, absolutely. Well, you grew up in Jamaica.
Yeah. And so we're really lucky, and I grew up around Island Records family, because my cousin, a guy called Dickie Jobson, he started Island Records with Chris Blackwell, and he used to manage Bob Marley and the Wailers. So I grew up going to the studio with Bob and with a lot of people who were also on Island, like Cat Stevens and all that, and then getting to just meet, you know, U2 and Bono and all of those people. So I was very blessed to be around such great musicians. You know?
And what was it like in Bob's presence? Did you know immediately, or was it just like just another guy?
Oh, no, because as a little kid, he had been my idol before he ever made it internationally. You know, he had been my idol, hearing all his early work and all that. And I thought the Wailers had the best harmonies in the world from when I was a kid, you know, and then growing up and then finally getting to meet him and seeing how great he was. And then all of his early work was like 9 out of 10. And then finally, when he did Concrete Jungle and that opening of Concrete Jungle and the Catch a Fire album, when I heard that, my whole world went from black and white to Technicolor, you know, everything changed. Then I realized that Bob was finally going to be an international star because he was no longer just doing the kind of Jamaican thing. He had made it a little bit more, you know, acceptable for the international audience and the rock audience.
And is that the early mid 70s you're talking about?
Yeah. Yeah, that album came out about 73, 72, 73, yeah.
Wow. And just and then Babylon by Bus was based on that tour, or?
Yeah, it was. The tour, about 2 tours after that in England was Babylon by Bus, and then they released the live album after that, you know.
Because that was the record really that hit me when you heard Bob live and you heard that record.
It was like a shaman. It's a whole different level, you know, what the kind of stuff he was doing on stage. He was just channeling something from another universe, you know.
Was there anybody out of Jamaica at that point that had that kind of energy in the world stage, or was Bob the first?
No, Bob was the one. I mean, Toots was always amazing because remember, Toots was before Bob, and he was always going strong. But because Bob was a revolutionary, you know, the songs were more focused on the kind of revolution side of it. Whereas Toots had a lot of love songs, and Toots songs was kind of songs for the people, you know. And he was really the people person, you know. All his songs were just songs for the common man. And that's why in Jamaica, when I would go around with Toots, people come up to him and he's like their uncle. You know, everybody comes up. They don't look at him like a rock star. They look at him like the uncle, and everybody comes up and hugs him up, and he just has that positive, jovial vibe that everybody just, you know, wants to be around him.
So if you were comparing them to like somebody that we could relate to in the 60s, like two guys from the San Francisco scene or something like that, who would be the Bob Marley and who would be the Toots?
Well, no, definitely the Bob Marley would be Bob Dylan, and Toots would be Otis Redding.
Oh, wow.
That kind of vibe. You know, whereas Otis wasn't really a revolutionary. He was just writing amazing love songs and songs that touched the people, the kind of Dock of the Bay and those songs. And then Toots' songs were the equivalent of that, you know. But Bob was a revolutionary, and that's why Bob influenced Dylan so much, you know. And so Dylan, even after a while, Dylan got a band with 3 girl singers behind it and tried to copy Marley exactly. You know? So Dylan was like realizing that Marley was, you know, the one to follow, you know.
I never even realized that.
Yeah, man. And another person, yeah, and even Paul Simon, a lot of those people were really studying things. And then, of course, a neighbor of mine in Ocho Rios, which is a town that I live in Jamaica, is Keith Richards from the Stones, you know. So he's been here all that time, and they did Goat's Head Soup here, which just was re-released. And so we were down here from when they were doing that. And so I've known him a long time, and he played on one of the albums that I did, and then I helped to produce with my brother Brian. We did an album with him called The Wingless Angels, which is the kind of Rastas doing the Naya Bingy chanting and keep playing rock music over it. So anybody out there, if you go to just YouTube or Spotify or whatever and check out The Wingless Angels, it's some of Keith Richards' best work, some amazing guitar and stuff like that.
That you produced that record, or you worked on it?
With me and my brother together produced the Wingless Angels album. And then, of course, if you also want to hear Keith Richards in connection with Toots, who we're talking about, he's on the True Love album that won the Reggae Grammy. And he sings Careless Ethiopian with Toots. And it is hands down the best vocal that Keith ever did. I think when he was in the presence of Toots, he knew that he had to, you know, really kill the vocal, and he killed it. That vocal on Careless Ethiopians is absolute genius. The 2 of them together, you know.
Wow. Well, you've worked with like so many legends. I mean, and when they come to Jamaica, they must totally be disarmed. I mean, yeah. Keith Richards in Jamaica must be a completely different human than Keith Richards backstage at a Stone show.
Exactly. Because I tell you, when people say to me, what's special about Jamaica? I said, let me tell you what's special. When you come to Jamaica, get this phone book, you know, that's the regular phone book. You open it, and in it says Keith Richards, and it has his phone number and his address. And if you call, he answers the phone. But nobody would ever think that it's him, you know what I mean? So a foreigner would never call. And then nobody in Jamaica know who he is, so nobody calls, you know? And many, many years ago, I was with him and Jane, who is his manager, and I said to them, take the number out of the book, because, you know, they went and killed John Lennon, you know? So they said, okay, we're going to take the number out of the book. 20 years later, the number is still in the book, you know? Like, forgot to take it out. So I said, so that's why Jamaica is so cool, is that there's no, you know, everybody's just equal. And when he walks around like the streets of Ocho Rios or town, like, nobody knows who he is, unless it's a tourist, you know? So that's why he loves it here. And he said, and the things that Keith said, that Jamaica is the only place in the world that his heart beats at the right pace. So that's a beautiful, you know, statement for Jamaica.
Yeah, well, it is. It's like the soul of the world. I mean, the soothing vibes that come off the island. But the political stance that Bob created was based on the strife that was happening in the streets of Jamaica.
Definitely. And back then, it was all a political thing because Jamaicans are not really violent people, you know. But back then, the political parties, each one wanted to win, so they had to get their gangs and fight the other gangs. So it was called garrisons in Jamaica, where you have an area, and then the whole area becomes filled with gangsters, and they fight against each other. So it was all political violence. It wasn't people robbing you or stuff like that, you know. And so it got a bad reputation. And then the parties tried to use Bob. Each party tried to use Bob to get to win, because if Bob endorsed them, then they would win, because all the people in Jamaica, you know, looked to Bob's voice. And in the end, he didn't endorse any of them. He just said, no, I don't endorse them. I'm just Rasta, you know. And that's actually the reason why he got shot, was because the present government said to him, will you do a show for the people? And Bob said, sure, I'll do a show for the people. And as he was about to do the show, they announced that the election was going to be the next day. So therefore, he would have been endorsing that party if he did that show. But he didn't know. He was tricked into doing that show. And that's when they came and shot him. The opposition party arranged to come and shoot him. And if you want to see that story, I helped put together a documentary which is called Who Shot the Sheriff on Netflix. It's probably the biggest thing ever done on Bob Marley, because, you know, there's a Marley documentary out, but how many people go and see a documentary in theaters or whatever? But people all over the world have contacted me and saying, we saw you on Who Shot the Sheriff, Who Shot the Sheriff. Everybody loved it, and it got nominated for an Emmy, you know. So anybody who has Netflix, just go on Who Shot the Sheriff, and you can see the whole story of how the CIA tried to kill Bob Marley and the government set it up and all the crazinesses. Because we captured everything there. We interviewed CIA agents, we interviewed KGB agents, Cuban agents and everything. So pretty heavy piece of work.
Amazing that they felt that he was so dangerous because he had so much power.
Oh, to go and shoot him like that. And the other thing is that Bob would 100% have died on that thing there, because Bob said that when the guy pulled out the gun, you know, they were in rehearsal and the guy came up. When the guy pulled out the gun, Bob said he just felt his spirit leave his body, and his spirit was soaring up above him, looking down on him, and that's what happened when you die, you know. And as the guy shot the bullet, Bob's manager Don Taylor walked in front of him, and he got all the shots. So Bob only got one in his shoulder. But if that guy hadn't walked in front of him, 100% Bob would have been dead. Wow. So then the spirit came back down because he didn't die, you know, but the spirit like kind of knew he was going to die. So that was really, really powerful that we didn't lose him, you know.
Wow. And how old was Bob when that happened?
He passed at 36, so he was probably about 32.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Well, he wasn't here long, but what a powerful
that work, and this is such a special spirit, you know, and how he moved the world, and I mean all that was crazy. When he passed, and they had his funeral up in the hills of Jamaica, where he's from, which is close to where I grew up, and the people lined the streets. It's like about 60, 70 miles. And there wasn't one spot on the street. The entire streets were lined for 60 miles of people just crying, you know. That's how much of a hero he was to them.
And we just celebrated, 75 years, right? Last year?
Yeah, definitely. Such a genius, man. And how he touched the world. And the thing about Bob is that you have to understand, in countries where they don't understand any English, Uzbekistan and those places, Bob is gigantic. They love him just because of the music. They love him because of the melodies, but they don't understand what he's saying. We love him because of what he's saying. Can you imagine if they loved him, if they understand what he was saying, they would love him twice as much. You know what I mean?
Well, sometimes the only English they would know was the stuff that they would learn in the songs.
Exactly. Yeah.
When you were a kid, was there music from the States seeping through down there too?
Yeah, the lucky thing with being in Jamaica, where I was so blessed, is that in Jamaica, we got all the music from England because we were a British colony. But because we were close, we just got independence from Britain. We were also close to America, so we were getting all of the American music. And then, of course, we had all the Jamaican music. So I was listening to Toots and Bob Marley and the Wailers and all of that. Whereas if you were in England, you weren't really hearing American music. If you were in America, you weren't really hearing English music. But I got to hear all three. So you have the perfect, you know, mix-up blend of all the three of them. So every week I was able to listen to Top of the Pops on the radio from England, you know, and then hear all the American stuff coming over from the stations in New Orleans and stuff like that. So you got to hear a little bit of everything.
So music was always a force for you from the time you were born, practically.
Definitely. And I was so blessed to be around, you know, at that time. And then, because my cousin started Island Records, I was able to go to the studio with Bob when I was a kid, you know, and all those things, and all the kind of cassettes, connections, and all those ones. So really kind of learned from the best, you know.
So were you were soaking it up when you were watching the guys on the board and watching the guys, how they worked with the musicians and stuff like that to figure out how you wanted to do it?
I wanted to do it. So just learning from them. And then eventually I met Lee Scratch Perry, who was the great producer who produced, you know, Bob's great stuff. And also he produced Paul McCartney and Robert Palmer and all that. And he, The Clash, and he produced my first album, you know, and that's how I got my first record deal, which was with Native, which was my band Native. So I was really lucky that I had at least Scratch Perry to do my first record. Not many people are that lucky to have one of the greatest producers of all time produce your first record.
How long did you last with singing career?
About 10 years. We did a few albums with A&M, with Herb Alpert, produced, worked on some albums with us, and Lou Adler. And we did albums with Universal, A&M, Arista Records, Clive Davis. So we did a few albums like that. So we lasted for about 10 years, and then just switched from that over to songwriting and producing and doing radio as well.
When did you come to the States?
I'm actually we moved to California. It was 1980. The first year we moved to California in 1980, and from then just started touring and doing shows. That's when we were with RCA at the time, tours and thing. And then eventually we did a lot of tours and a lot of stuff. And then eventually I just said, after a little while, I was like, let me just try the production thing. It's easier, than being on the road every night and all that. It's like a kid's game. If you're like 17, it's okay. But
it's fun when you're young.
Yeah. So it's tough, man. It's tough every single night, just out and I always tell people, so kids coming up, I said to them, listen, the definition of rock and roll is smelling last night's show on your shirt. That we're playing every single night, and if that's what that's how you make it. And if you don't do that, then there's no chance. And who wants to do that? When you're a little bit over 18, it's like not fun anymore.
And how did you became a kind of like a bridge between the reggae culture and Los Angeles?
Yeah, so I was really lucky. So I was in LA, and I got I'd never done radio before, but I was so lucky that I was hired immediately by K-Rock, which was the #1 station in America, to do their reggae show, and I did that for 7 years. So I was able to. At that time was when we broke not only Nirvana, Pearl Jam, Chili Peppers, Smashing Pumpkins, all of those guys, and I was a part of all of that. But also with the reggae, I was the first one to play Brad Noel and Sublime on the radio, the first one to play No Doubt. So I had to break all of the kind of reggae bands, and so I ended up working with them after that. So I played 311 first and all those guys. So I ended up doing records with 311 and No Doubt and Sublime. Well, after Brad died, I worked with Long Beach Double Stars, and so I was able to, because I helped to kind of put together that when the rock reggae thing finally broke, of which the godfather, of course, is the great Brad Noel. Best songwriter ever in rock reggae music.
Talk about working with No Doubt and how that came about.
Yeah, man, it was so cool because since I played them on the radio, I said to them, well, you have to come to Jamaica and do some stuff. So that story was really interesting. So what happened was that so I brought Tony Canal down, and we were saying, okay, we're going to come to Jamaica and do the album. So I said, I just went the other day up and visited his haunted house where I took Tony, and I said, Tony, we're going to go up to this haunted house. We're going to bring some people, and we're going to go outside on full moon, and we're going to howl at the moon for like an hour, right, and channel all the spirits, and we're going to get a hit record. So we did that, and then after that, we brought down Gwen, and the whole No Doubt band came down, and we did it, and sold 4 million albums and won 2 Grammys. So it was chanting at the haunted house that caused it, not the music.
Well, the album was rock steady, and you ended up winning 2 Grammys.
Yeah.
Try to break that down for us, for a little kid from Jamaica, and what that's like to be accepted by an organization like NARIS.
Yeah, man, it was amazing. It was so cool, and you never know whether something's going to be a hit, because even when No Doubt came to do the Rocksteady album in Jamaica, the album before had not done very well. The Return to Saturn. So as far as they were concerned, they were like, oh, well, this might be the last album. We don't really know, because if one sells 15 million and the next one sells 2 million, you're kind of like, maybe we're on the way down. So we came down now, and they said, and then for that album, they got Prince to produce some tracks, and they got Nelly Hooper, who's a great producer from Soul to Soul and all that, and York, and then also Rick Ocasek from the Cars, who passed. He was a really great guy too. So they had these 3 biggest producers in the world producing it. And for Jamaica, this was just going to be the fun tracks. Let's just patronize No Doubt, is the record company saying, and just let them do some little fun things in Jamaica. So we brought in Sly and Robbie and my brother Brian, and they just never expected anything to really come out of Jamaica except some fun for No Doubt. But it ended up being that we got the two #1 songs and the 2 Grammys, and the other people never got any Grammys or #1 songs. And No Doubt had already sold like 20 million albums and never gotten a Grammy. And then the first 2 songs for them was 2 Grammys. So sometimes you're just blessed, sometimes you're lucky, you don't know what it is.
What was it like when they called your name?
Yeah, man, that was amazing to hear that. But the funny part of the story, and my brother Brian always tells it, is that, so when they come down, No Doubt are like, okay, well, we're going to go to the studio at like 10 o'clock every morning, and we're going to just like record all day and we're going to record until midnight, you know, because that's what they used to do. So we said, no, that's not going to happen. You're going to wake up at 12. We're going to go to the beach with red stripes and spliffs, and you're going to just cool out and get the vibe of Jamaica. And then you're going to go into the studio like 6 p.m. and record for like 4 hours. And you're going to get better stuff than if you just kill yourself for the whole day. Because music is not something like banking, or, you know, you're not making shoes. As John Lennon says, it beats making shoes. You're not making shoes. What you're trying to do is channel something from another world and bring it in and create magic, you know. By them going to the beach and relaxing and smoking and drinking, then by the time they came into the studio, it was just such positive vibe. Bam, 2 Grammys. Bam, 4 million albums.
Was that always the way Jamaican artists recorded?
Yeah, because it's very, very relaxed. Nobody ever gets to the studio before 6 p.m. You know? And so it's like an all-night thing. It's an all-night thing. But they know that it's just a vibe. You're just trying to capture that lightning in a bottle, that particular moment. You're just trying to capture it. So it's not something that you can do like you're going to make shoes for 10 hours.
Right, but it's trying to change the mentality of a band that's the way they've done it, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, wait, you got to do it the Jamaican way. You're here now.
Exactly. They just have to trust us and trust that we knew, you know, what we're doing, and it worked out great. So
I'm surprised they didn't come back to do the whole next record in Jamaica.
Well, we were really surprised too. I thought that, you know, the thing, and even Sly and Robbie were kind of like, man, we were hoping that the next one would come in. And we had actually set up the whole thing, and they were supposed to come. And because it was even a situation where Gwen was going to bring her kids, and we had to make sure that, you know, there was available hospitals and it was available in case anything happened to anybody. And we had letters from doctors saying, yes, if anything happens, they'll be there right away. We had everything set up for thing. And then in the end, I think Interscope wanted them to do it in LA. And so they ended up not doing it. And I think they did it with Diplo and all that. But that album didn't really do that well. You know, I wish if they had come back to us, I think we would have done much better.
I'm sure. So now back to my question. You're at the Grammys, you go there, you're all dressed up, and they open up the envelope and say, Wayne Jobson.
Well, they said no, though, because they don't really.
Well, they said best song, right?
Yeah, the 2 songs. And so, I mean, it's a hell of a feeling, man, to know, you watch the Grammys all your life and hope that one day you could win one. And then, bam, here it comes, and everything just flows, you know? So I was really blessed. But those songs were so good. And what they did, you know, it's really hard to get a reggae hit in America. And then to get a reggae #1 in America is virtually impossible. So then to get Hey Baby as a #1 song, and that's really dancehall. It's not even like Bob Marley reggae. And then underneath it all, which was a real reggae one, both of those were #1. To get 2 #1 songs is really hard. And it just showed the brilliance of the band. No doubt, it's just a brilliant band. And Gwen Stefani is just such a brilliant songwriter. You know? I mean, like her song "Don't Speak" is one of the greatest songs of all time. You know? So it's that level of songwriting and stuff that really. Really, yeah. And I love, like, even in that song, I love Gwen's lyric, which was like, so that's one of the best lyrics ever, which is, you know, she's going to say to a guy, no, you're trying to come back to me after you left me. So Gwen says, you've used up all your coupons and all you have left is me, right? How brilliant is that, right? People think of that line. It's just like very clever, you know?
Yeah, it would be great if they got back together. I know the guys would love it to get back together, but Gwen's in a different mindset right now.
Yeah. I just saw her on the ACM Country Awards last night with Blake Shelton. Yeah,
what'd you think?
She's always great. I mean, whatever she does, she's great. But I like her more when she's doing No Doubt. You know, her solo stuff was very good, but with No Doubt, she just created some kind of a magic there with all of them together. You know.
Yeah, but it's really hard with these artists when this singer becomes more famous than the band.
Right. Really, 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 really tough.
And then
I think eventually they'll realize that to create that magic again, that they could get back together again and do it. So I'm just hoping that happens. Because even sometimes the combination, you know, is like 1 and 1 equals 3, of course, like the Stones, you know. So, of course, you know, Keith Richards' stuff is really great, and so on, and Jagger's stuff is great. But when they tour them together, it's brilliant. It's a different level, you know. They just create sparks. And I think No Doubt got back together again. It could really create sparks.
Yeah, it's always great to have the original people back doing it, but they have to do it for the right reasons. It's got to be for the love and not for the money. I mean, that seems to be the obstacle.
Definitely. Yeah, man, so crazy. But coming back to Toots, man, it was so sad with, you know, Toots passed on 9/11, which is the same day that Peter Tosh was murdered. And I also did the Peter Tosh documentary, you know, which is called, if anybody out there wants to watch it, you can just go to YouTube. It's called Red X, the word Red and the letter X, Peter Tosh. Got nominated for an Academy Award in Canada. So the life story of Peter Tosh and how he got murdered, and I interviewed the guy who murdered him on death row and stuff like that. It's powerful piece of work. But every time 9/11 comes, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is the day that the murder Pete, and I'm waiting for something to happen. And 9/11, 20 years ago, 19 years ago, I was in DC at Sirius XM, which I was helping. I did build a radio station for them called The Joint, and we could hear the Pentagon blow up right by. The Pentagon is pretty close to XM, so it was you know, I was expecting some 9/11, and then this 9/11, I was just like, hope nothing happens, and of course, Toots passes. It's so sad.
But he was sick. Like we heard about it a week earlier, right? Pretty much.
Exactly.
I heard everybody was saying, poor Toots, I hope you get better. And the next thing you know is he was gone.
Yeah. And I mean, it has to do with, you know, I mean, he's 77, but also I'm not a person who agrees with cigarettes. I'm very anti-cigarettes. I'm not anti ganja or marijuana. I'm not anti that, but I don't believe in smoking ganja 24/7. And if anybody does that, I think they're crazy. In the night comes, you know, you finish work. When the night comes, the night comes and you want to smoke a spliff or two, then that's fine. But to wake up in the morning and wake and bake and smoke 24/7, I think that's kind of crazy, right? I don't think anybody should do that.
Well, you know, I mean, in all defense, the thing coming out of America now is that all use is medical use.
Right.
And some, you know, you're just as likely to kill somebody that you love in the morning as you are in the evening. So sometimes you got to relax a little bit and not get excited. So sometimes you wake up and you're like, I need to take a step back.
Right. No, I completely agree with marijuana. And I was in 1998, I was at K-Rock, and I was one of the main people on the radio every day interviewing Jack Kerouac, who's the godfather of marijuana, who wrote the book, you know, Emperor Wears No Clothes.
Yes.
And interviewing all of them, pushing for the legalization and for medical. And we got medical in 98, which was before, or 97, before anybody. I was first in the world in the medical. So I've always been pushing for it and pushing for it. And media, I just don't believe in it 24/7. So in Toots' case, it was 24/7, you know, plus the cigarettes, plus he drank a lot of overproof rum, which is a very strong Jamaican, you know, which is something that maybe you can do those three things when you're like 20, not when you're 70. You know, because that then it will eventually get you. So, but I mean, he was just such a genius and such a great guy. You're not going to tell somebody something, oh, you can't, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't. You know what I mean? Just do whatever you want. And he was still brilliant, and his music was, and his songwriting was genius. So you just let it slide. You know? But if you would have been my dad, I would have just gone, no, you're stopping the cigarettes first. After you stop the cigarettes, then you can cut down to like 20 spliffs a day instead of 40.
Wow, he was still a partier, huh?
He was partier, man. But I tell you a great story with Toots. I always tell people how Toots is not only is a national treasure, but he's like kind of total Jamaican royalty, you know. So once my cousin was, we used to be Bob Marley's lawyer. She's in Who Shot the Sheriff, if you get to watch that on Netflix. Her name is Diane Jobson, and she was also Toots' lawyer. So one day Toots called her and said, hey, I'm bringing some weed for you, you know. So she's like, great. So at the end of the day, you know, Toots had to bring it. So she called Toots and goes, Toots, where's the weed? I've been waiting all day for it. So Toots says, the place where I usually go and get the weed, down in the roughest ghetto in Jamaica. The police and soldiers have cordoned off the whole place. It's a massive curfew down there. Nobody can go in there. So I'm getting a police escort to take me in there to get the weed. So I could be there, you know. So it's the only man in Jamaica who can get a police escort to go into a curfew to get weed and come back out, right? Even the Prime Minister of Jamaica couldn't get it. So that's why he was just royalty. Even the police would have said, Toots, if you want weed in a cordon off here, even though it's completely illegal, we'll do it for you. Even the cops, everybody just worshipped him, you know. Yeah,
well, he was the last legend left, really, right?
Definitely. I mean, Jimmy Cliff is still around, so he's you know, Jimmy is there, and Jimmy's. I think we might be putting together some new music with Jimmy, so that would be
But Jimmy's not touring.
Yeah, he's still touring.
Oh, is he?
He was about to go and play that big festival. They had the kind of reggae festival, Roots Reggae Festival, whatever they have up in by Monterey. He was going to be playing that this year. So he still tours, and he's still, I mean, and his voice is, and he played in some of his new music. It's unbelievable.
You just had a shout out from New Orleans here. Ivan Neville saying hi.
Wicked, yeah, man. Ivan, absolute genius. Actually, Ivan might be doing something with us with the Jimmy project, the Jimmy project. So,
oh, great.
Can't talk about it yet because of things. But Ivan, and I tell you, if you're listening, I tell people this. And I was talking to Zach Starkey the other day, and he said he's using Ivan on the new record. And I said, well, let me tell you something. I've been hanging out with him many years with Keith Richards, and he's my neighbor. And the only person in the world that I've ever heard Keith say that person is a genius is Ivan. we were in the studio one day with me and Keith, and Ivan was playing, and Keith said, Ivan is a genius. And I go, well, that's not bad. You're not coming from him. I guess he might know. He should know. You know what I mean? So that was really cool, man. I just saw Ivan the other day. He came down and he played on some projects with us. Here, we have a studio down in Ocho's, Zach Starkey. He built a studio down here, and Ivan came and played with us and some projects. Ivan is still as brilliant as ever.
Well, you get the pick from the best to work with, right?
Definitely.
And especially when it's a fun project and you can bring in people you want to work with.
Exactly. So cool, man. And then another crazy Toots story is he's like, he was playing Glastonbury, and of course everybody dreams of playing Glastonbury and Coachella. So Toots is at Glastonbury, and I don't know what he or his driver had been smoking, but people are on stage going, ladies and gentlemen, Toots and the Maytals, and the band is there, and Toots is driving over the other total side of the festival in a golf cart, driving around and around, and him and his driver and smoking and smoking. And they said, Toots and the Maytals, and after they said it about 10 times, and like 15 minutes past, they just canceled the show. So Toots never got to play Glastonbury because he had lost over the other side of Glastonbury in a golf cart.
He got lost outside of Glastonbury.
No, he was in there, but he was inside. You know, there's a million tents and a million stages. So
right.
He was stage to stage and couldn't find the stage, you know.
Did he miss his set?
Miss his set completely. That's what I'm saying. For the band that had to come out. So people dream of playing Glastonbury, and then you get there and maybe you're so stoned that you can't find it, you know, the stage. So that's why I don't agree in smoking 24/7. But he can do what he wants because he was a genius, you know. Definitely a great guy. And then some more things. There's another interesting project I put together with Toots, which was there's a show called Live from Darrell's House, which is Darrell Hall, you know.
Yeah.
So Darrell called me and said, I want to come and shoot. I'm doing a show in Jamaica, so I want to come and shoot Live from Darrell's house at my house. So we shot it at my house up in the hills of Jamaica. And so I went to Toots and I said, Toots, Hall & Oates want you to come and sing on the TV show with them. He goes, I've never heard of them. I said, Toots, they're the biggest duo in history. He goes, I've never heard of them. So I said, okay, if you come, I'll give you a pound of weed and I'll get your favorite chef in the world, Record Susan Coach, to come and cook for you. And he goes, okay, food and weed here, right? So it doesn't matter who Hall & Oates is, right? Everybody be dreaming to get that gig, but just came anyway. He totally killed it. I mean, just hear him. You can watch the show if you go to livefromdarrellshouse.com and you can see it and him Toots together. And just so brilliant. And hear the two voices together, two of them singing. And the crazy thing was he was in a car crash a few days before, and I thought he wasn't going to come, but he's just this guy. He's a guy who gives you his word. So he gave me his word, and he came and he showed up and he killed it. And him and Darrell together was brilliant. The only thing, even when he was there, he still didn't know who Darrell was. So like, you know, so Darrell is playing guitar and Toots is singing, and all of a sudden Toots goes, hey, guitar man, stop playing that. Darrell is like, it's my show, you can't tell me what to stop. So Darrell just stopped. And when we saw Darrell the other day, Darrell said, he can't believe it, but he respects Toots so much, he just stopped playing guitar when Toots told him to stop playing. Even though it was his show, it's Darrell's show. So crazy, man. That's what Toots is. And he, of course, he knows, he toured with the Stones, so he knows the Toots Stones, he knows who, you know, he knows Willie Nelson. But apart from that, all the people who love him and he tours with them, he doesn't even know who they are. You know, like when backstage at the show and like Dave Matthews comes up to him and say, hey, Toots, you know, thanks. And he goes, oh, can you get me a drink? He thinks like Dave Matthews is like the waiter or something like that. You know, we have no idea who these people are. It's like so crazy. And then he like, so I said, Toots, I was interviewing him once, Toots, who you been touring with? He said, yeah, you know, I just did a show with Jimmy Moffett. And then also played with Bill Nelson, and then I played with Jimmy Moffett. And about 5 times he said the word Jimmy Moffett again. He doesn't even know that the guy's name is Jimmy Buffett, you know. And he tours with him and sees the gigantic stadiums, and then it doesn't occur to him that the guy's name is Jimmy Buffett. So that's the kind of level that he's at, you know what I mean? Just like,
is that, does he not listen to anybody else? I mean, what does Toots listen to? What was he listening to?
Mostly in R&B stuff. I mean, his idols like Otis Redding and all that kind of stuff. You know, James Brown, and I don't think
so
he doesn't listen to a lot of rock.
He listens to a lot of rock.
No, but of course he loves Marley and all of the reggae stuff, and then all of the soul stuff. You know?
Did you play him a couple Hall & Oates songs so he could hear what the guy was like?
Yeah. We played it for him before, and then when he came, they did one Hall & Oates song. He sang one Hall & Oates song with Darrell, and then Darrell sang all of his songs. You know. So, yeah, man. So it was amazing stuff, you know. To see those two great voices together. It's incredible, you know?
He's Toots sounds like quite the character.
Same, man. And the thing is that he was always, you know, like he touched the common man. And in his mind, he still thinks that he was like 18, you know. Because I remember he was exactly 17 years old. I was in Washington, D.C. when I was at Sirius XM. And Toots was playing, and his manager he was his 60th birthday, so it would have been 7 years ago. And they brought a cake out, and everybody sang happy birthday to him at the 9:30 Club in Washington, D.C. And right as we went backstage, Toots got really mad with his manager, and he was like, "How dare you tell these people I'm 60 years old? I'm a young man, I'm just a little baby, and you telling him," and he gets really mad at the guy for telling him that he was 60 years old. So in his brain, he thought he was 18, and you can't tell people I'm 60, I'm 18, you know? And then when I would interview him, and I said, "So Toots, when you first came from the country to Kingston, you know, to Trenchtown, and you met Bob Marley and Jimmy Cliff, and what we say," he says, "No, when I came to Kingston, Bob Marley were big stars, and Jimmy Cliff were big stars. They were way before me. He was before them, but you know, he doesn't want to look old, so it's just like so classic."
He's rewriting the history.
Rewrite the history, man, because in his brain he's 18, and he still says 18 forever, you know? And that's why he was just so brilliant, because he has a song called "I'll Never Grow Old," you know, never grow old, and that's what he was. He's always just young at heart and just so brilliant. Yeah.
He was the torchbearer. We have Jimmy Cliff left. I mean, there are not too many legends. Who's the new blood that's going to come up? You got the Marley family, of course. Mm-hmm. But anybody besides that?
Well, I mean, out of Jamaica, the guy who's kind of the hero in Jamaica right now is Chronix. And I just saw him play the other day, and he's really good, and he's just experimental, and he's not trying to do, you know, corny pop songs. He's just doing great experimental, and his videos are really cool. So for those of you who haven't heard him, you can check out Chronix, and probably most of you have heard him, because he's like the biggest star in Jamaica. And really, he's the kind of...
What's his style?
Roots reggae.
You know, roots reggae.
Roots reggae and Rasta and all that. But his band is great, and he just has a powerful vibe and a kind of a, you know, like kind of religious vibe, which is like, you know, very mystical and great lyrics. And so he's kind of carrying on the torch in Jamaica right now. Chronix.
What else you got? You're coming up. What have you been working on fresh? With Zach Starkey, I mean, like I was saying, we might be doing something with Jimmy Cliff, but we can't talk about it yet. Right.
And just in the studio here, doing some stuff with Sly and Robbie, putting it together, and then I'm putting together a few films at kind of early stages to really talk about them. We're doing a few documentaries and all that, and then there's a Peter Tosh film that we're putting together as well, which will be with Kevin MacDonald, who is a great director, who did the Marley documentary, and then he did the Last King of Scotland. He won the Academy Award for that.
Yeah. Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, man.
Well, Wayne, I mean, when are you coming back?
Hopefully in about a week or two. I'm just waiting for the air to clear a little bit.
Yeah, it's actually gotten better. It started to get better like 3 days ago. I started to see blue sky. You know, it's kind of in and out now. In San Francisco, it's cleared up yesterday, so they saw blue sky for the first time in 10 days.
Wow.
So yes.
So it is getting better then.
Yeah. It's getting better. So I think in the next week or so, you should be totally fine.
Oh,
you know,
I'll come back within a week then.
Yeah, Wayne and I see each other all the time. Leon, Preston, our friend Leon Robinson, the great Leon. You make sure we're always hanging out, having a good time at somewhere fun.
Speaking of Leon, another project that obviously we can't announce, but I can just kind of hint at is maybe I'm working together with Leon and maybe something to do with Cool Runnings. I can't really say any more than that. But,
you mean there finally might be a sequel?
Let's say we'll think about it.
Everybody loved Cool Runnings. I mean, and
such an amazing film, man. And Leon did such a great job in that.
And you helped put the music together. Were you there when they were shooting it also?
Yeah, when they were shooting, and then we helped with some of the songs and all that. And Leon did such a great job. So hopefully we're going to put in together something similar to that, and it's going to come out, you know. But out of Jamaica, you also have some great new female singers. There's a girl called Koffee, Koffee.
Oh, I've seen her before. She's amazing.
Koffee's incredible, man. And she has been writing good songs and has a whole vibe. And then there's another new female singer called Zia Benjamin, Zia Benjamin. And she's kind of like a Jamaican Amy Winehouse. Great songs and great vibe. And she's the other one that's kind of coming up. So the females are doing it really well as well too. So we can watch out for Koffee, Zia Benjamin, and also Chronix. You know?
I love it. I'm going to check them out, and I want to check out your documentaries. I want to see Who Shot the Sheriff. I got to watch that.
That one is very, very powerful, man. Who Shot the Sheriff kind of has so much good stuff in it, you know.
And I want to see the other one's a Peter Tosh doc, right?
Peter Tosh is called Red X, and then there's a Toots documentary that's out as well too. And one thing that I always tell people about the Toots documentary, I mean, and it's very, very well done. I think the BBC did it, and but who is in it is Eric Clapton. And what really baffled me was that Clapton was the one who kind of helped put Bob Marley on the map by doing I Shot the Sheriff and turning him on to the rock audience. Yet still, if you look in the Bob Marley documentary, you don't see Eric Clapton. But if you look in the Toots documentary, Clapton is in there. So that's how much Clapton loved Toots, that he wanted to be in there and was talking about it. So, and they kind of, all of the remembrances that have come since, you know, he passed, you know, huge write-ups from Mick Jagger praising him and Eric Clapton and everybody, no doubt. So many people love Toots. You know? In Jamaica, people didn't realize how big he was because he was just kind of the common man. You know? He didn't have any ears and he didn't really push himself. But what I was so happy is that Got to Be Tough, which is a new Toots album, is out. It's on BMG, Trojan Jamaica. And it's doing really well. We're in 1 million streams a week. Well, that was before he passed. Now the streams have gone insane. And it's such a powerful album. So, and actually Ringo Starr plays on it, which is Zach Stark, his dad. So Ringo is on it, and you know, a lot of interesting people, and Sly Dunbar, Sly and Robbie is on it. So you can watch out for that album. Some really good songs on it. And we're hoping that that's going to be, I mean, it's almost 100% going to get a Grammy nomination. And we're hoping that it's going to win the Grammy next year for Toots, which will be the second Grammy.
Well, the first original music from Toots in 10 years, right?
Right, exactly.
Absolutely incredible. And a week before he passed away, it came out.
Came out. And there's a huge article in Rolling Stone too. So if you just go to Rolling Stone magazine and put in Toots, you'll see it's about 4 pages of Toots in here. So I was so glad that Rolling Stone article came out, and the album did really well, and he knew he was getting 1 million streams a week before he passed. So he knew that something was happening, because you don't want to pass and then nothing is happening with this stuff and he just disappeared. You know?
Well, I heard it was COVID. Was it COVID that?
I mean, I'm not 100% sure, but I'm about 99% sure it was COVID. And the thing with COVID is that, and if you know anybody who gets COVID, don't let them put them in a coma when they put on the ventilator, because that's just the worst thing. Because what happens is that liquid collects in the lungs, and the liquid in the lungs is what kills them. So just make sure that they don't put them away. Just keep them alive and keep them alive. Put them on a ventilator, but on a ventilator while they're awake.
Yeah.
Remember, if you put them in the coma, then it's fine.
Well, tragic loss for the world, but you know what? You had such an amazing experience bringing his music to life and helping him. So thank you, Wayne, for all you've done for connecting America with the reggae, because you really have done it. It's really been your life work to bring the reggae to us. And I love reggae. I listen to it all the time. I mean, it's just part of my life. It's, you know, I don't have the dreads, but
I've been to some crazy parties at your house, and you always have lots of great reggae. Yeah, man.
It's always fun, and a lot of good Grateful Dead too, right? Wayne likes the Dead too. Wayne. I will see Wayne at everything. You love music, Wayne. That's one thing that we have in common, is we both love all music.
Yeah, man. And another crazy one was the Dead played in Jamaica. You know, that was one of the craziest things I've ever seen. Dead played in Jamaica, and the last man, I think Peter Tosh or one person, somebody finished at like 2 a.m. and the Dead sound checked for 3 hours, right? And they went on at 5 a.m. Well, when they went on, every single Jamaican had gone. Right, the place was completely empty except for 5,000 dead heads who had come down for the show. You know? So I fell asleep and I woke up and watched them, and you know, it was with Jerry, so they were really good back then with Jerry. You know?
Classic times. Hanging with the Grateful Dead in Jamaica, hanging with Keith Richards in Jamaica. Did you say did you say you dosed with Jerry?
No. When the show was finished, Bob Ware came down and hung out at my place, you know. I'm still in touch with him, and he comes to Jamaica and plays once in a while. And I see him when I go to different shows. And I saw him up at Outside Lands a few years ago. So
yeah, that's right. Outside Lands. We had a good time there. It was a lot of fun.
Still a great guy, man. So at least I know I see you at every show that I go to.
That's right. We always have a good time, Wayne. I can't wait to get back. Let's connect when you get back and give our love to everybody in Jamaica, our best to Toots' family and everybody that worked with him, please.
Maximum respect to everybody out there at 420 Live. And Ivan, we hope to see you very soon. Let's do some more work together. Ivan,
I love it. All right, Native Wayne Jobson, thank you for coming on 420 Live.
Every time, man. Stay in touch.
See you soon. There you go. Part of my family, the Rasta part of my family. You know, I just love being able to come here and talk about so many different things with all my different friends. I mean, that's the first time I've done a deep dive with Wayne and really get into what he's done in his whole life. And it's really interesting to hear, you know, how inspired he was by music at such a young age. I mean, it's something that affects all of us, you know, and I see you over here, Mr. Christopher Myers checking in. Chris Myers with Humphreys McGee. Humphreys is back out playing. They have a show coming up in October. They just played, was it 2 weeks ago? I'm still listening to those drive-in shows. They were so good. Nice work there, Myers. We're loving the fact that you guys are back at it. Yes, and there's Doug Herzog too. We were talking about you a little bit earlier in the show there, Doug, and about your radio station at college that you started, the reggae station. So, although reggae's touched all of us because we also love the Sacramento. Hold on, Wayne? They have a question. I have a question.
Oh,
my buddy wants to know: did you ever work on ska?
Yeah, a little bit from in the early days with ska, and there was a genius. One of the guys who invented ska along with Toots, his name was Desmond Dekker. Desmond Dekker, and he had that song, "The Israelites," which was, like it was #1 in America. And Desmond Dekker, but people kind of forgot about him. So we went into the studio and recorded an album of all of his covers of all of his great songs and all that. And then from the early days, just watching Toots do all of the ska stuff as well too.
And then all the UK kind of adopted it, right? Bands like Madness.
Definitely. When I was in England, one of my memories is, of course, seeing the Scatolites and all that in Jamaica. But when I was in England, and I remember the first time I went to England and I met Johnny Rotten from the Sex Pistols, and he said to me, "Listen, there's this amazing band you have to go and see called the Specials." And I was like, and he played the music, and I said, "Man, this is just kind of like the Scatolites, but not as good." And then he said, "No, come and see them live." But when I went to saw them live, they totally blew off my head. The Specials were so brilliant. I think it was at the Greyhound or one of those tiny little pubs, so they just killed it, man. And that just kind of changed my whole. When I saw it, I said, "Yes, this could really be huge," And then they at the time I was signed to Arista Records, Clive Davis, and they said to me, "We were thinking about signing this band, go and see them." So I went and saw them. It was English Beat, and then they signed the English Beat. So I was kind of there when that whole thing happened with Selector Specials and English Beat in England at that time, And just to watch all of them do that well and kind of take over the world and take over America and all, it was amazing. And just basically teaching the world about Jamaican ska music. So that was important.
And that was so infectious. You mentioned the Clash earlier, working with Lee Scratch Perry, right?
Yeah.
Did you work with Joe Strummer when he came out, or maybe a Big Audio Dynamite or any of those?
Well, I know those guys. I know Mick quite good and Joe, but my main memories of them is I put together an album with my brother and Dave Stewart from the Eurythmics with Jimmy Cliff. One of the Jimmy Cliff albums is called Fantastic Plastic People, and Joe Strummer wrote a special song for us and recorded it with Jimmy on the album. And it's called Over the Border. You can probably find it on Spotify and stuff. Over the Border with Joe Strummer. And then we were going to bring Joe to Jamaica and do a show with Jimmy just before he passed, So that was really sad. But another classic story. This has to be one of the best stories ever out of Jamaica. So the Clash now, the Sandinista, right? They did the Sandinista album. On the cover, they're posing with these guns, like they're real revolutionaries, right? So they come to Jamaica now and they want to record at Channel 1, which is one of the roughest studios in Jamaica. It's down there. If you leave the car outside, it's gone immediately. And if you step outside of the studio, there's about a 50-50 chance you're going to be shot, right? So that's not in there recording. They just want to record in the roughest ghetto studio because it had a great sound. That's where Sly and Robbie created their whole sound. And they were the guys who created the bottom end, the kind of rhythm section, the engine room of reggae. And so here they are in the studio. So the Clash are in there recording, and the guy who used to play drums in my band was in there playing drums with them. And he was a really fast runner. Before he was a musician, he used to run for Jamaica. So he said he's in the studio, and all of a sudden the Clash are playing, and he's playing Strummer, Simon and Jones. He's playing drums because at that time Topper hit him. I think he was ill or something, couldn't come. So bam, the police are chasing a gangster. The gangster runs into the studio and he's just firing shots like pow, pow, and the police are just firing. When the police are trying to get a gangster, they don't care if you get hit. Now this is the roughest ghetto in Jamaica, and the rest of Jamaica is not like this. So they're running in, bam, 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 shooting everywhere. So in Jamaica, the only two words you ever hear is get flat. But you just dive on your stomach, and if you're flat on your stomach, maybe a bullet won't hit you, So all of the Clash jump on the ground, and they're flat, and my drummer is flat on the ground. They don't want to get killed. They run through the studio, firing shots. The gangster runs back door. The police shooting shots, run chasing out the back. So as soon as they're gone, my drummer just jumped up and said, he's getting out of this place as far as he can. So he ran out the front door and he's running up the street as fast as he can. Remember, he used to run for Jamaica. I said, nobody could catch him, right? This guy's like a boy. Running up the street as fast as he can, just to get away from there in case there's more murders down there, whatever. He said all of a sudden, the three skinny white guys just fly past him, right? Gone up to the end of the road. Yeah, he gets to the end of the road. They're faster than him. And when he gets there, he says to them, what's going on? And they said, bloody hell, it was real guns. So now they're posing on the cover of Sandinista, right? Like they're gangsters. But when some real guns fire, they just take off. They so crazy that all of a sudden they forgot what gangsters they were, you know.
And not only that, but ran faster than a runner.
So that was the clash, escaping, Joe Strummer escaping from Channel 1 studio, you know.
There you go. I love it. Michael Palmer. There's Doug Herzog.
Oh,
you know Doug, right?
Yeah, man. Doug, how you doing, man? Such a great guy, man. He was one of the early reggae DJs. So we always talk about reggae when I see him. You know?
He was. And he's still proud of it too. We talked about it on the show. I had him on. He loved it. I think of all the things he's done, I think it's one of the things he's most proud of in his life.
You forget being like the head of Fox and all that. That's just a joke.
And MTV and Viacom and Comedy Central and everything else.
Right. All of those were a joke compared to being a reggae DJ. Crazy.
Well, thanks, Wayne. Thanks for jumping back in and telling that Clash story. That was a classic.
Maximum respect.
All right. We'll talk to you soon. There you go. I'm glad we had a little time left to squeeze that in because those were great. Thanks, DJ Sparkles, for the questions there, and also for Chris Myers right there with the Desmond Decker. There you go. You heard it right from the horse's mouth there. If you have any, Wayne is incredibly accessible. If you're not following him on socials, you should be. If you have any questions for Wayne or want to know anything or pick his brain further, you hit him up. He's a great guy. Part of the family, part of the Kravitz family. Anyway, to everybody out there, peace, love, happiness. Thank you for tuning in to 420 Live. Once again, your distraction. We take you away. Oh, I did post early up. Henry Schwab is having a fundraiser. He must have 30 posters in the raffle he's doing. I believe it's $20 to enter, and you go into the GoFundMe, and it'll explain to you. The link is in the front. I put it up so people can click it. If you have any problems finding it, please hit me up. I'll make sure you get it, or just look up Fish Inc. Solo Pipe Venice. I'll hit Native Wayne up with a solo pipe when I see him. Our friends at Astor's Chocolates, the 420 CBD bar. It's deliciousness in every bite. If you haven't had it yet, hit me up. We can talk about it. Headcount.org. If you go on Headcount right now, they're doing something with Global Citizens. Your favorite band is giving away amazing packages. Fish gave away ice cream and tickets and all this stuff. So get out there and do the thing. Make sure you're registered to vote, because we are headed to one of the most important elections of our time coming up right now. And I think it's time that we all voice our opinions. I've been fighting nonstop on these socials, and today I had to leave it alone because it's just frustrating. These people are so ingrained, but every day there's somebody else that comes out to tell us how bad things are and what's been going on out there. So if you're paying attention, there's a lot of good information out there. The Bob Woodward interviews are absolutely staggering. Everything that comes out of his mouth is kind of, a revelation. Rare for a reporter like that to make a judgment on who's fit for office. Oh, speaking of fit, unfit, the documentary that you want to watch, Social Dilemma. There's so many good things out there right now to watch that are all trying to program you and get out of the programming, to program you to deprogram you. I'm going to go deprogram myself over there with my bong right there. It's over there. I can see it. It's waiting for me. Everybody out there, have a good day. I already did the peace, love, happiness, the hug. A Rasta hug for all my friends out there. Thank you to Wayne Jobson for coming in from Jamaica and filling us in. We can't wait to see him back here in LA. And I think we'll see you here tomorrow. You never know. Every day's an adventure. Take care, buddy.